Alright, this video is to clarify my comment for an idea on Colin Furze's magnetic suspension bike video. I'm going to try and keep it brief, but I think it's best to view important points before I get into my mock-up. I'm going to switch over to the video so that we can view the portion that I'm talking about.
Okay, for everyday riding, this is absolutely fantastic, really smooth, but of course we've only got to give it just a tiny bit more abuse and it starts crying for help. But it's not the magnets that are failing us, it's the joints, it's the frame. Basically, we're asking too much of it for this distance from these joints to be able to hold themselves in position. Now, you may ask, why have you done it like this, Colin? Well, two reasons really. One is the old YouTube thumbnail, the thing that's more important than the video these days, is these gaps, they look really cool, and some of you might be watching this video because you saw the gaps in the bike and thought, hello, what's going on here? And also, I wanted there to be absolutely no doubt that the suspension was working off the magnets and there wasn't any sneaky springs somewhere. But well, I think there's another project in this. There's a Mark II. So we need to think about this. How can we do this any different? Now, we could put support rails and stuff, or we could have even a central shaft running through the middle of the magnet. But again, I quite like this setup where you see the gap. So ideas in the comments, maintain the gap, make it work better. How can we do it? Right, thanks to Magnet.
Alright, so a few things were very clear off the rip. The points that were mentioned are that the joints and frames need some more support. Specifically that the distance between the joints and the suspension create too much stress. We can't bring the magnets closer, as the closer to the hinge they are, the greater the force they will take. This was demonstrated earlier in his video. We also want it to be obvious that there aren't any hidden suspension aside from the magnets. The gap must be preserved. The central shaft was thought to be possible, but that would also mean that the magnets would lose a lot of their power. My idea, although does close the gap. If you hollow out the inside, you can preserve the gap somewhat. There are two sets of stabilizers. There's this back one right here, and this front one. He mentioned that the rails would be possible, but I think that if you hollow out the inside, you could get as close as possible to being obvious that there's no other suspension behind it. My idea, although it does close the gap, if you hollow out the inside, you can preserve the gap somewhat. There are two sets of stabilizers, one on each wheel side of the frame, and a guide to prevent as much flexing of the seat frame as possible. While I understand it does look to bridge the gap, I think it's also entirely possible to show in a video that the stabilizers don't have any other hidden features, aside from holding it together. You can look here. I made this little box to show a close-up. I think you could add a box on this frame right here, and these little black portions are imagined to be rollers. So there'd be two sets of these on either side, two on the front side and then two on the back side that you can't see. If you swap between here and here, you can kind of imagine how they would look together. But they would basically roll along these rollers right here. I think you could do just fine without the rollers, and I think you could even make it possible that if you use thicker steel, that it would give you even more support. I also kind of flirted with the idea of adding like zigzags up and down it to kind of add some extra additional support, because we are hollowing out the middle, which would make it easier to flex. But I believe, generally speaking, that this would solve the problem. I do understand, though, that it does bridge the gap, which was one of his main points. But I'm not really skilled enough in engineering to come up with a better solution. I think this is the most practical thing I could come up with. But with that being said, I did come up with a secondary idea. What if, and I'm thinking pie in the sky here, what if we use magnets that are pulling towards themselves? So these ones are in suspension, so they're pushing against each other, but these ones would be attracting each other. I'm not really confident that it would actually work, but it does fit the theme, and I think it'd be really cool if it actually would work. I think it would fall more in line with the video, but you would probably also need to make these ones even stronger because they are closer to the hinge right here, which we already stated was going to mean that they were going to take more weight. But you would also probably have to beef up these top ones too in order to account for the pulling that these ones are doing against the pushing that these ones are doing. Anyway, that's my idea. I think it would be fun, but this other one is probably a bit more practical. Just wanted to clarify my comment. Thanks for watching.